Beach Theory.
Woohoo!
Season 3 today, we have a question. And this one is a really interesting one. Make sure in the comments below on YouTube,
Yes.
you can send us a voice question on Anchor. Please send us your questions. We want to have some really deep conversations this season about some controversial topics. There's nothing we won't talk about, I think. So send us your questions, please. We want to hear them. And we want to give advice and
just like the deepest, darkest.
Share our theories.
Just kidding. But we want to talk about things that matter, I think, and not just. It's so easy to talk about the weather, frivolous things that are just easy conversation starters. But I feel like it can be damaging to always talk about those things and to not really dive into things that we truly care about or that are important to us. So
the reason why seasons 1 and 2 focus primarily on our lives and our experiences is because when we get into beach theory and we want to talk about the controversial topics, the hard conversations, I want you to have a framework of who we are and where we came from. You know what I mean? Why we are the way we are. Because if I'm going to give an opinion on poverty, I want you to realize I haven't always been in a position of affluence financially. I've worked my butt off. And so for you to understand kind of where we came from in our life and in our marriage,
it'll be important for you to know.
It helps you have context for where we come with our opinions and our ideas. So anyway, now we're ready to talk about the deep stuff. What's the question for today?
Here's the question for today. And, if we talk about it and we feel like we want to talk about a different thing after we talked about this, we can.
You're saying if this doesn't fill a podcast?
But if it does, then good. So, do people have an obligation to help others, or should people be responsible for helping themselves? It's a good question.
I almost feel like I want to hear it again. Do people have an obligation
to help others, or should people be responsible for helping themselves?
Or should people be responsible for helping themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it says? It almost sounds like you have to choose between the two. You can't do both.
That's where what do I think? I think there's got to be a middle ground. I think that you have to use judgment on people. And that's I think that's sad in a way that, for instance, if you're driving down the street, you see a homeless person. Sometimes I do just snap judgment, think, should I help them? Or are they going to go and use the money for drugs? Or if I do want to help them, it's I want to do food or something like that. But I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard subject. But, when it comes to not the typical homeless person, or I'm thinking of family members, I think I have different opinions when it comes to that. What do you think?
Oh, do people have an obligation to help others, or should people be responsible for helping themselves?
Oh, as in I need to take care of myself?
Yeah, you misread the question.
Oh.
So should I have an obligation to help others, or should I say no, it's their responsibility to help themselves, I'm not going to get involved? That's the question. Mm-hmm. That's the either or. Mm-hmm. Because you made it sound or do I have an obligation to help myself? And I was like, well, of course I have, a responsibility to help myself.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
So I think from that perspective, the obligation to help others comes from a position of, I guess, in my mind, do I have... the way I always think about it is am I even taking care of my own needs? How can I be expected or obligated in this sense to help somebody else when I'm not even when I'm not even taking care of myself? Should I be obligated to help somebody else who's starving when I haven't even eaten in 3 days? Mm-hmm. Right? I think that's kind of where that's an extreme example, but if I'm struggling to even manage my own affairs, how am I supposed to be expected or obligated to help somebody else?
I think that's self-care. You do need to take care of yourself. It's kind of like the in an airplane, you put the mask on yourself before you put it on your kids.
Right.
So you don't faint and then both of you don't get it.
Right.
But I think in regards to helping other people, this is how I do it. This is my theory. This is what I believe.
Let's hear it. Let's hear Becca's theory.
I say a prayer. And I am able to hear whether or not I'm supposed to help that person or not, like financially or food or a vehicle or, like just anything, like, and, we have been blessed to be in such a good position to be able to help so many people. Like, it's just been a really good opportunity for us. And we have been able to help a lot of people through, YouTube and being able to make the money that we've been able to make. But that has also put us in a position where we do get asked often for money or things. And I would say this: whenever I am asked for something, I say a prayer and I go, am I supposed to help them or not with that thing? And if I feel good about it, then I do it. If I don't feel good about it, then I don't do it. So I don't feel like it's an all or nothing thing.
Yeah. It's like a case by case basis.
It really is. It really is. And it's hard because I feel like in this world today, if I were to explain that to somebody who asked me that, it's like not a good enough explanation, or some people might even call it an excuse for not helping them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's not an excuse. I feel this is a legitimate way of me feeling good or bad about it. Like, and that's how I just communicate. That's how I do it. So I'm never going to feel bad if I feel like I'm trying to listen to the Spirit and do the right thing.
I think to answer the question very directly, do people have an obligation to help others, or should people be responsible for helping themselves? I think my real answer, my gut, like my true honest answer to that is both.
Mm-hmm.
Like 100% both.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that people should be responsible for helping themselves.
Yeah, I do too.
Take responsibility for your life. Take accountability for your situation and for your actions and your choices.
That I have a really good thing to say about that.
But also to those who are suffering and in need of help, who cannot help themselves, then yes, I do believe we have an obligation to help them.
Yeah.
When you have the ability to help them and they have a need and can't help themselves, then yes, I believe you have an obligation to help them.
Yeah.
But on the same thing, if they are capable and able to help themselves, they have a responsibility to help themselves.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be
somebody, if they can help themselves, they should not look to someone else
exactly.
to take care of all their
100%.
problems.
What were you going to say?
Well, a few years ago, a lot of years ago, in 2012, we got a job at a storage unit place. We talked all about that. So if you've listened to all of our other podcasts, you know exactly what we're talking about. But one of the biggest lessons I learned from that job was, okay, they have things, right? It's not like it's their house. It's people will get a storage unit and they'll put things in that storage unit, and then they won't pay for that storage unit. Sometimes that's what would happen. And they would come in really mad because if legally they did not pay, we would have to put a second lock on their storage unit and say, pay or we will auction off your stuff after a certain amount of time. So here's the allotted amount of time for you to get the money that you need to pay to catch up on your monthly. Which was very reasonable. It was like very cheap. Like, it wasn't like a house payment or anything. It was like really cheap to get a storage unit.
Less than $100 a month.
Yeah, like it wasn't much. Anybody could come up with that kind of money. But they wouldn't pay, and then they would come and cry to me. And at first I was like, well, with each individual situation, I would definitely like try to listen and feel if they were being sincere or not. Like, feel it out.
Or if they were trying to take advantage of me.
Or if they were trying to take advantage of me. And the thing is, I have to say I was, because I used to be, and I don't think I am so much anymore, a pushover, like in that way. I would just be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, you had surgery. Oh my goodness. Or, oh, my dog died. Like, seriously, people would say things like, my dog died. I cannot get you that money. Or like, my grandma died. and I have been going through depression and I just can't. Or, I had to use the money for food. I had to use them. And I was like, that's so sad. And at first I was like, I don't know if I can do this job, because it was like requiring me to hold them to what they promised to do. And I would have to be the bad guy. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I've never done this before. This is not me, like this is so uncomfortable. But it was the best lesson to learn, because it was a great place for somebody to learn that lesson, because it's just stuff. It's just stuff. It was not, it was interesting too, because the people who didn't pay, usually their unit was filled with things that were very cheap things that could be easily replaced. The people that would pay consistently, they had nice cars in there. Like it was very different mindset. Like I feel like the expensive things, people made sure they were paying on. But if it was like cheap, not garbage, but not like nice things at all, that it was just filled so much stuff in the storage unit, and they would cry to me and say, I can't pay, and I didn't pay, and I'm not going to pay. And I would be like, okay, well, we have to auction it off. And either they would miraculously come up with some money, or they would have it auctioned off. And that was just the reality of it. But it was interesting to me to see full-grown adults that had never been held to a responsibility like that, that thought that absolutely 100%, if they cried to me about their stuff, I would just give it to them. I would just give in, let them keep walking all over me, because that's really what they were doing. They could have come up with that money. Anybody could have come up with that amount of money. And it was like, I don't know. It was really interesting, because I didn't realize how many full-grown adults had not had that type of a lesson in their life, where they legit had to follow through or they lost it. And it was like they had to have a consequence.
Did you ever have anybody come in and give you their sob story, and then when you held your ground, they instantly changed?
Yes.
I think the lesson that they learned wasn't accountability. The lesson that they've learned in their life through experience is how to act like a victim and get their way.
I know there's going to be people that this will stir up controversy with.
This is our theory.
This is our theory, so just take it with a grain of salt. You can have a different opinion than us. It's okay.
It is okay. We still love you.
We still love you, and that's the main
Hopefully
point.
you still love us. But what do you think of that?
Oh, okay. So this was really, really interesting. A lawyer, a guy that was smart talker. I thought you were going to say something else. I'll tell this story after, but I thought you were actually going to say, did you ever have somebody come in that gave their sob story and then you just helped them? And that happened all the time too.
Oh.
Like there were many people who came in and were like, I am so sorry. Very genuine. Like I have this thing that's going on in my life. I could look back and see how consistent they were with their payments, and if their story lined up with their payments, and like, it was
the first offense.
And it was the first offense, and like they were like legit trying, and I would be like, it's no big deal. Like let's give it another month. Let's give you a little bit of time. Just make sure you come in, because if you don't, then I really do have to do this. And I was always like that, even when they were mean to me. But I felt like it was just interesting, because there was this guy. So a lawyer came in, right? And he's like, you have to let me get into my storage unit. And I was like, you have not paid. And he's like, well, you have to, and I will take you to court, and I will sue you, and I will do all this stuff. And I was like, actually, it says right here on the contract exactly what I'm doing. I'm just following my job. And he's like, you have to do this. And he just like went off on me, yelled at me, kept yelling at me. Oh my goodness, so hard. And I was just like, actually, it says it right here on the contract. And I just did that so many times because he just kept yelling at me. And I'm like, it says it right here. I'm just, oh, yep, I'm doing what it says. Oh, you don't say, really? Okay, well, actually, it says right here. And he I was perfectly calm and he was just yelling at me. And then eventually he lost his steam. He just had yelled and yelled and yelled. And he's like, you would make a really good lawyer. And I was like, thank you.
Good job, babe.
And we actually did end up auctioning off his stuff.
Did we?
We did.
Oh, he didn't pay.
He did not pay.
It was a matter of principle at that point.
Well, he never came in and he never paid. And I had seen that he had a lot of history of not paying. And,
Inconsistency.
the person that was there before us that had been replaced was very inconsistent with making people, if they gave a sob story. In fact, that was something I heard so often was, hey, if we ever told Larry that we had something going on, he was really nice to us and you're just being a jerk. And I was like, I'm sorry. That was Larry.
Why do you think he's been replaced?
I'm sorry. I can't do that too, or I'm going to lose my job.
Well, the thing too is and I have similar experiences. I worked at a call center.
Yeah.
I worked at a call center where people would call in. For a few months I worked here where they would call in and be like, they would yell and scream.
A little kindness goes a long way.
Right? Like they would yell and scream at me to try and get their way.
Mm-hmm.
And they would want like a refund or whatever it was, like, oh my gosh, I was billed for this and I never used it or whatever. And it's like, I didn't have to give them anything. I didn't have to give them a refund.
Mm-hmm.
But people have been trained through life experiences that when they throw a fit or when they complain or when they give a sob story and they're a victim, that they get catered to and people will bend over backwards to make their life better. And so they will
and I just
proactively they would even sometimes make up stories.
Yeah. Some of those were legit lies that people were told to me
just to get their way.
Because I was curious enough to look it up or like to do a little bit of research and find out, or to call their family member and say, hey, is this actually going on? Oh no, they say that all the time. Like legit people would just lie.
And take advantage.
And I was like, okay, well, they're going to auction.
Right.
And if they don't pay, and I could have a little bit of leniency, but I couldn't really.
When you feel like you're being used.
Absolutely. Like when I felt like people were taking advantage of me, and I never felt like before that point in my life, like holding people to consequences was actually like a good thing. I don't know why, but I just didn't really.
I think sometimes people who hold people to consequences are looked down upon in today's society.
Because that's mean or that's rude or...
Like, how dare you make me have a consequence?
What makes you better than me? Just like...
Right.
There's lots of things that people could say. But the thing is, I ended up being in that position, like it or not. And what I learned is sometimes I was even like, I'm sorry, but I know that this is not going to destroy your life. This stuff is just stuff. It's not like all your, like I knew that it was like, oh, Christmas decorations or something. And that was what was in like every storage unit was Christmas decorations. But like what I knew and figured out was if I didn't hold them to that consequence, they would do the exact same thing over
I was
and
just going to say that same
and
thing.
over and over. And I was
if you were
like,
lenient one month, the next month they were late again.
It's true. And it happened. And I think I learned that very quickly from the very beginning. I was like, oh, okay, well, I can't do that anymore because they will legit just have a free storage unit forever. And that's not how a business can be run. You'll go bankrupt.
Right.
So I think what I learned was this will help them.
Right.
Like, and I truly, truly believed it. I was like, this will help you.
Like, accountability will help you.
Accountability will help you. And being the bad guy, me right now, is worth it because this is a lesson you haven't learned yet.
Right.
Or you haven't learned it enough.
Right.
To get to a point where you're like, oh, I actually will have a consequence if I act this way, or if I do this thing, or if I treat people badly. And the thing is, yes, it's a business, but they were treating us badly by not paying because they promised that they would. And it, it can't just be
one-sided.
Yeah.
Just because you own a business and you're offering a service or providing value to someone,
that doesn't mean you get to be walked all over by them.
Exactly.
And treated badly from them.
Right.
And I think a lot of society needs to know that.
They need a good spanking.
I think everybody should have a call center job at least once in their life. And then they will realize it's nice to be nice.
I worked at a call center multiple times.
Yeah.
For years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a lot of experience with customer service.
You have a lot of empathy for people who have to do a hard job like that.
And also I feel like I like to think that I'm a good judge of like character.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does this person deserve mercy in this situation, or do they need to be held to justice? Because that's really what it comes down to is the balance.
It's weird to be put in that spot.
The balance of mercy and justice. And oftentimes in a call center, when you're handling people's accounts, or at a storage, facility, when you're handling people's money in their accounts, like, you're in a position where it's like, I could give you mercy.
Yeah.
But is that appropriate?
Mm-hmm.
And do you need that right now? Or do you need justice to be served so that you can learn a lesson?
Yeah.
And
that's hard.
How do you make that call?
That's the whole question. How do you make that call?
Well, I think your answer at the beginning was best when you said, I just pray about it.
Yeah.
And it's really on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
Because if I have someone call me and they're like, hey, like totally respectful, hey, this has been a really bad month. I'm really sorry, but I can't pay this month.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way you can help me out this month? And I look at their account and they've never had a problem. It's been totally fine. It's and they're really respectful and kind to me. Yeah. Right? Like, and they're asking nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And if I say no, I know that they're going to be like, okay, well, I need to cancel my account.
Yeah.
Or I guess I'll have to go borrow some money from my mom or my brother or whatever. Yeah. Like, they'll find a way to pay it because that's the right thing to do.
Well, I think if you put yourself in their shoes for one, if you have never had a call center job and you do a hard job like that where you have to make decisions to help or to not, like, I would say try to put yourself in their shoes and think, most of the day they get yelled at. Yeah. Most of the day with most everybody.
You even worked at a call center.
I did.
And you got yelled at a lot.
I got yelled at all day, every day, and then I quit after 2 weeks. I was like, I gave my 2 weeks notice the first day.
But the thing is, like I was saying, like, if people are super respectful and don't have a history of making this a career to, get their way, then I'm gonna be like, totally, like, of course. You're an honest, good person. I'm going to give you mercy in this situation because you do need it.
And it really shows a person's character, when you see how they treat telemarketers.
But when there's people who are like basically professional actors and they're just going to give you their sub story every single time and they're always delinquent and they get their way because they know how to yell and scream at managers and they know how to threaten and, and it's just like they're professional victims. Yeah. It's like, well, no, you don't need more mercy. You've gotten so much now that you have no accountability.
And at least they could learn the lesson in a place where it's just stuff. It's not like they're losing their house or their food or their life. Like, they had a place to stay. They had everything they needed. It was only a storage unit of stuff that they didn't need right then that got lost. And so it was like really the perfect opportunity to teach that lesson.
I think that's the thing too, though, is like on a deeper level, even than that, do they really need to be catered to more and supported in their bad behaviors?
Let me show an example.
Because I think that you're not doing anyone a service by supporting that kind of a lifestyle and behavior. Mm-hmm. You're not doing any benefit giving them things for free. Because that's just reinforcing that bad behavior.
It did get to a point where people would walk in the door and I knew if they would be able to pay or not. Right. Except if it was the people who were like honest that legit had bad things happen. I wouldn't be able to, Mm-hmm. But it was like I could tell who the troublemakers were going to be. Because like one time, this was crazy, but this couple comes in the door with like they were like, we're being evicted. Those jerks, they're evicting us, so we have to put all of our stuff in a storage unit. So they were like waiting for me. I'm like setting it up and they're like, the bishop will be here soon to pay for it. Like they had went and asked the bishop to pay for the storage unit so they could put. Meanwhile, we're in this tiny room. Like it was a very small little office and they start kissing. I'm like 2 feet away from them on the other side of the desk and they're like making out like, I just was evicted. let's make out. Like, it was the weirdest. And then, like, you know, it was one of those situations where they had gone and done a sob story, but they didn't really care.
Right.
And like,
Because they're
and
professionals.
so like the bishop came like it was an emergency, and they were there like making out.
Like, this is just every day.
Yeah. And I was like, interesting. This is all so
Wow.
interesting to me, just to think that like these people don't actually care that they're being evicted.
Mm-hmm.
They're making out. They made the bishop have an emergency situation to get a check over to me so that he could pay the rent on the storage unit, so that they could and it was just like, that is so weird. How many other people have they done this to? You know, like,
Have they used
or have they
manipulated? Well, that's why it's like, it's so hard, because on the one hand, you don't want to judge people.
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't want to.
And I can say, I bet just talking about this, the people who are honest about it are probably like, I feel so guilty. I've probably done this. And it's like, no, you probably haven't. Like, I bet for the most part, the people who have done this don't even recognize that they do it.
If I don't use, like, if I don't have some sort of a filter or a judgment that I use in my life, then I would give all of my money to every single poor person in the world, and then I would be destitute.
Yeah.
And now I've put myself in a position where I can't even provide for my family.
Or let alone help anyone else.
Or let alone, right, help anyone else. And so that's why I think the best stance to take is, help yourself first. And then if there's excess or more that you have to give, look for the best opportunities to serve. And more important than giving someone something is teaching them to help themselves. It's like the old adage, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I see people that are in need,
Michael truly lives by that.
I'm like, okay, you need some help, you need some money, you need something. Okay, well, here's a job.
And it frustrates people because they're like, but I want money.
Right. And I'm like, well, I'll give you money, but you have to give me something in return, because I can't just give for nothing, because I didn't get what I have for nothing.
By the way, I think
that's fair.
I just have to say, if anybody that is listening to this has been helped from us in any way, family, friends, anybody, like, don't think we're talking about you. All of these examples I've been pulling from have all been from the storage units. So I just want to let you know, I'm not talking about any of you. I hope you don't feel bad. And I am
talking about all of you. Just kidding. Not really.
And like, if we have given, we don't feel like, oh, we just got taken advantage of.
No.
Like, I just feel like, no. In fact, that's something that we talk about a lot, is like, if we are going to give to somebody
as a loan,
and we say this is a loan, and maybe we shouldn't even say this on here.
No, it's fine. But that's the thing.
Because we want you to give it back, right?
Well, my mom taught me this when I was a kid. She said, don't loan something to someone unless you're okay with never getting it back. And so I think that's kind of the approach that I've taken.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give something to someone, with the expectation that they'll return it.
And there is an expectation.
There is. And I think our relationship is on the line.
Yes.
But if it's not returned, I'm not going to, hate that person or bother them for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Or never let it go, or like have that be an unresolved issue that you just can't get past.
Right. But I probably won't loan them something again.
Or it might ruin a relationship or friendship.
It could.
Which is almost worse.
But then I guess it's a gift, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. And that has happened to us too, where we've had to just be like, well, that's gone.
Yeah.
and then we just don't loan anymore.
Because I'm not gonna be that person that's like, when are you gonna pay me back? When are you gonna pay me back?
Yeah.
Just because I don't want to play that game.
But also, on the other hand, if we ever have anybody that works for us, we're always like, make sure to tell us if we owe you money, because sometimes we forget because we have so much going on.
Yeah, I can't keep track.
So it's like you say, I'm not going to play that game, but then we kind of sometimes expect
it would be really
too.
easy of people who work for us to be like, oh, I worked all these hours, even though they didn't, and take advantage of us.
Yeah.
I just expect people to be honest.
Yeah.
Because and in expecting people to be honest, if I ever find out that they were dishonest and took advantage
That
of me,
will take so much.
I just don't know if I could ever trust them again.
And have them work for us.
Yeah.
And that's a really sad thing because we're awesome bosses.
I think we're pretty good. I try to be fair.
No, we're just really immature.
I try to be approachable and, not aloof from things. I don't think of myself as better than anyone. I don't think I'm more important or anything. I just have worked really, really hard, and I think the harder you work for something, the more you respect it. And when you get things for free, you don't respect the thing, and you don't respect the person that gave it to you for nothing.
I just think, you're right about that, by the way. But I just think it all really boils down to, trust, respect, and feeling out each situation per time, per person, like what's per situation, what's going on, and not just blindly going in and being like, sure to everything, or no to everything.
Right.
Either way, I don't think either one of those is right. It's got to be somewhere in between,
right,
to be, I think, the best way to do it. And I don't know what that goes to.
That's the charger.
Okay.
It's okay.
There's other instances where I don't know if I maybe want to say this or not.
What are you gonna say? Pass?
I'll say it and then you tell me if we need to edit it out or not.
Okay.
So there have been other times where it's like I've been praying for someone and I've been like, they need help. Please help them. They really, really need help. They need some financial assistance. They need something. And then, have you ever seen the movie Harry Potter? I can't remember which one it is, where, I think it's The Prisoner of Azkaban, actually, where the Harry has time traveled and he's watching himself be sucked alive, kissed alive by the Death Eaters, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, my dad's gonna be here any second. And Hermione's like, he's not coming. He's not. And then Harry's like, oh no. And then he's like, wait, I'm gonna save me because I've already done it. And then he does it. Well, that part, it doesn't really matter, the already done it part. But that moment,
where he realizes that he was the one who saved him.
That moment where he's staring at somebody suffering, right? He's staring at himself suffering. But I was thinking about it with this other situation. If you're staring at somebody suffering and they're really struggling and you're like praying for them, what can I do? How can they need help? Somebody come, somebody. And then we have had this happen where I just got this feeling like no one is coming. And they will have very bad consequences if no one comes. And then all of a sudden it switched and I was like, it's me. I have to be that one. It can't be anybody else. And I feel like crying about this because it's just like, I feel like that's from God, when I get that feeling of it's you. You are the person who's supposed to come to help.
Yeah. That
was the plan from the beginning, and they need that help right now.
And it's got to be you.
That's when it's like, okay, of course I feel good about it. I'm going to do it, I'll do whatever, whatever I can do. And we have been blessed to be able to do stuff for people that have been in a bad situation that no one was coming. And I shudder to think at what situation they would be in right now without that,
Yeah.
So
I don't even know what situation you're referencing, but and you don't have to tell me. It doesn't. The point is listening, being willing to help in a situation. And I think that one of the most empowering, passion things that get me the most excited and passionate about life is the opportunity to serve other people. In my life experience, I've had some low times, and the only thing that got me out of that dark place was service to other people. I remember a specific time on my mission.
When you physically cannot feel that happiness,
right,
and then being able to do something to watch somebody else feel the happiness that you can't feel, I think helps bring you out of the sadness.
right. I remember I was having a really bad day on my mission. And I was I think someone had said something and I was really upset by it. And it was just a really crummy day. And we were at the church building with a whole bunch of other missionaries. And I saw some ladies bringing in some food for an event that was happening. And I was just kind of sitting there lost in my own misery and sadness. And I saw them all just kind of doing their own thing, working. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something nice. And so I got up and I asked if I could help them. And I helped them all bring in all their food and all their trays. And I just helped them for, I don't know, maybe a half hour working and serving. And immediately afterwards, I was just like, man, I feel so much better.
Wow.
And ever since that thing, that ingrained in my mind, ever since that moment, I'm like, man, if I ever get depressed, I know the secret to overcoming that. And that is service for others, forgetting yourself, forgetting your own pity or whatever, and just helping other people, being selfless and serving. And all of a sudden it's like, man, I just feel so good right now.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really find gets me so fired up and excited about life is, we've already got nice things. We've got our dream house. We've got all this stuff, and we've got our family, beautiful kids, everything we have, we've been so richly blessed. And I thank Heavenly Father for it.
Yeah.
But getting more things isn't what really gets me excited. It's helping other people. That's what I get truly excited about. And I'll do that without any expectation, just to be able to see other people succeed and have, good opportunities. And so because I'm in a good place, I have so much more that I can give to the world and to other people than if I was in a place where I could barely even help myself. Well, now I can't help anyone. I can barely even help myself. But if I'm working towards that goal of being able to help as many people as possible, I think Heavenly Father gives us that opportunities. Do you really want to be that? You want to be that person? Because there's plenty of suffering that needs help.
Yeah.
If you're willing to do the work, He'll give us.
I think the biggest word that we haven't even said in here is enabling. That has been my my biggest fear. And I'll give an example of it. When we first moved in with my parents, as we're married, they're older, and we're just, the very first time we moved in together, there was a lot of working out of kinks and stuff. And anytime I saw oh, they're running low on toilet paper or something, I'd be like, oh, I've got to go to the store and get them some toilet paper. I've got to go do that. They didn't even ask for that, right? They didn't even ask for that. And I think I did it a few times. And then it occurred to me that with some other small things, we'll pay for the garbage. We'll do this, we'll do that. That it became suddenly very easy for them to be like, wait, how come you're not paying for that? And I was like, wait, I wasn't wanting to pay for it for you for the rest of your life. I just want to help you,
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, if I do that, it will, and it's because of me, I will enable people to rely on me. And I would do the same. If somebody did that to me, I would do the exact same thing. I'd be like, if somebody brings me a brownie every day and one day they stop, I'd be like, why'd you stop bringing me a brownie? What's your problem?
If they came and paid our mortgage, or if they came and paid our utilities every single month, and we're like, man, this is pretty great. I guess I don't even have to worry about that anymore. I'll go play some video games. And then,
or I'm going to spend all my mortgage money on something else. Right. Wow. Because I don't need to worry about that.
That's not a good place to be.
And then it's that stops coming.
I think,
and you're like,
this leads into a really interesting thing. it kind of goes along the same lines because the government does that.
Yeah.
For people.
Yeah.
People say
food stamps.
And we've been there. We've been on food stamps.
Yeah.
We've been on Medicaid.
We know how hard it was to get off of food stamps because of how nice it was.
It's so nice.
So nice.
Being like, oh, government, I'm just not making enough money and I can't. Here's all my bills. Here's all my income. You can see that I'm poor. Please give me food stamps. And then they send us all this money and I'm like, sweet, I can go buy some
This is more money
food
than I ever would have spent on food.
Yeah, like and
with an actual budget.
This is me saying what we did. Like I'm not judging anyone but myself.
Yeah. This is not talking about. This is what we did.
This is my experience,
which is very
using the government assistance. And oh man, it's so nice having Medicaid because it pays for everything. We can go have a baby and it costs nothing. That's so nice. I'll just stay poor forever, and the government takes care of all the hard stuff.
And that is.
We
were completely enabled by it.
Totally.
It was so easy to do that.
But then we're
to a point where we're like, let's not even progress because that would be way too hard.
Yeah.
To have to pay for our own medical bills. To have to pay
thousands
for our own
of dollars. No, thank you.
Which there were definite times we needed it. We did need it when we had it. And we
were perfectly justified.
It was 100% we were not taking advantage of anybody. It was oh, what are we going to do? We have to have medical. We need this.
But looking back now, knowing what I know now, looking back, I'm like, oh man, that was really enabling us to live in a poor way. And it was really hard to
break free
to even have a motivation to want to make more money because it was a real conversation that we had. Becca, if we start making more money on YouTube, we're not going to be able to have food stamps anymore. And that's a lot of money that we're going to lose. Oh my gosh, we're making too much money and now we don't have Medicaid.
It was really
we're going to have to pay for our own kids.
Well, okay. Having our own kids at the hospital. But here's the weird part. And it is tricky, but I think the range, it was if you start making this much money, then you'll lose all your food stamps. And we were like, well, if we make $500 more, we'll lose $2,000 of food each month. But that means we only have $500 for food. So we go from 2,000 to 500. That's just not going to work. So it was we almost had to be poor for a certain amount and then jump way higher in order to get off of it,
and still be able to have money.
And so it was really, really hard to break free of that.
Right. And I think the same goes
it was even more enabling that way.
I think the same goes for people who have been trained to ask for money and to give their sob story. It's hard to break free from that mentality of I'm a victim and go from to a place of,
well, that's what
I can take care of myself and I'm going to be self-reliant.
If that has worked for you, then how do you know another way?
Right.
That's the way Right. And so that's another reason why I'm it's easy for us to be a sob story, but in reality, that's someone's life.
Right.
And that's their story. And that's sometimes it's a lie.
Right.
To get, but I don't think it's not always a lie.
No, it's not.
Most of the time it's they're legitimately having a really hard time and they just don't know another way. And
right.
And when you talked about you like to teach a man to fish, I think that's what's super important about our stories, that we legit went from absolutely relying on the government and other people, and that's the way we knew. That was familiar, that was comfortable, and that's all we could do. That's what we thought. Mm-hmm. We had no other bright idea or option that we thought of or that we knew of.
Because our mindset was stuck in that space, and it's hard to break out of that.
But that's it wasn't our fault.
No.
It just was, that was how it was.
Yeah.
And so I feel that's the same with anybody that's struggling with that right now. I don't want to say, you have a sob story, you're a victim. I want to say, that's what you know, or you're doing the best you can. And
with what you've been taught.
I think it's we have to be careful, I guess, in the way that we portray or talk about others who are going through that right now.
Totally.
You know.
Well, to say that we've been there is to say I understand. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm not judging you, not judging anyone. I don't think, and I said this before, I don't think I'm better than anyone. I'm just at a different place, right? And I feel like I've learned from that experience, and now I'm better for it. Like I feel like I am at a better place in my life. At least I feel like I'm happier where I'm at now than where I was. And I'm hoping that maybe, you know, maybe someone listening to this can be feeling like they have permission now to break free from the chains of, you know, that old mentality, that old way of thinking, and be liberated to, you know, to make their life better and take accountability.
What you have now is your life experience. What you have now is ideas and possibilities that were never there before. And so we've talked about this a lot. Like, what if we lost everything? What would we do? Well, I can for sure tell you we would not go get food stamps.
I can agree with that.
And we would not go get financial aid. Like, unless it was like we were on our deathbed and it was like we didn't have enough months to build up our business or something. But like, there's just so many options, so many possibilities. Even in this time of coronavirus, like
Totally.
There's so much that can be done to make money that would be, to have to go and get government assistance right now would be like 10 steps backwards. And it would be like the last thing on our list of ideas to do. Not that it's wrong for any of you, but at this point, with the experience that we've had, it's like, no, there are other options we can do.
For us, it's right.
Yeah.
Well, and to say I can look back on my life and say, man, I've come a long way, like I've progressed. I don't want to give the impression that I've arrived and that I'm done either. And if I saw someone who is like, and there are people right now in my life where I look at them and I'm like, I'm not there yet, but that's where I want to be. Right?
Yeah.
And maybe for some of you watching, you're looking at me and you're like, oh, that's where I was, and now I'm up here. Or maybe you're looking at me and being like, I'm not there yet, but that's where I want to be. Right?
Yeah.
Like there's no shame in that. There's no guilt. There's nothing.
As long as you're not like, I'm the worst, I shouldn't even try. Like, you know, like putting yourself down because of that.
There's nothing wrong with admitting I'm not where I want to be. That's where I want to be. Because I've had that same mentality, and I think that's the only reason why I've gotten to where I am right now, is because I've been humble enough to say, I'm not where I want to be. I can see somebody is where I want to be. I'm going to work to become more like that. And even now in my life, I'm not arrived. There's still people that I look up to that I can kind of aspire to be more like, that help me to become more giving, more hardworking, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
To be more good of a person.
Yeah.
So,
well, we're not done yet, and like we're trying our hardest, and I think, you know, in the last episode we talked a lot about like our relationship and how, you know, we have a list of things that we haven't agreed on or that we need to work through, and slowly as the years have gone by, we've worked on one thing at a time until we've made compromises to move on and like get better, right? And like I think not very many people look at their finances in that way and go, what can we do better? How can we move on from this problem? Or how can we move up from this budget? How can we make a bit more? Or what can, like, I don't think it's looked at like this is a problem. We need to do what it takes to fix this, as much as like, this is a problem. This is my life.
And there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
Right. You're right. Well, this is a good topic.
Yeah, I didn't realize I was so passionate about this.
You're like, we probably won't even take up the whole podcast with this topic, but let's just touch on it for a little while.
Oh, that scared me so bad.
We're almost done. Give us just a minute.
I'll try.
1 minute.
I'll help you in just a minute.
I feel satisfied, though. I feel like I covered everything I want to talk about.
The biggest fear I have is that somebody's going to think, they're so prideful and jerks and they like to just make justice happen, you know, like,
I think there's a time and a place for justice, and there's a time and a place for mercy.
Yeah.
And you just have to take it on a case by case basis.
Yeah. And I feel like I had to legally, when we were doing the storage units, enforce justice.
So if you owned the
lot.
storage units, would it have been a different situation?
I just don't know if I could. If it was me without the experience to begin with, I wouldn't have been able to do storage units.
Yeah.
As like that I couldn't have done that. I would have had to hire somebody else to be the mean person.
Because you don't want to be that. It's too hard.
Yeah, but like at
it was
this
easy
point
when
in my
you were
life,
there to be like, it's not my decision. It's
the big guy, you know, the boss or whatever. Like
the lawyers
his
made
fault,
me do it.
The lawyers. But like if it was me who owns the business, I was telling them like it's up to me, I probably would be too nice. I don't know. That's too hard of a question.
Well, tell us in the comments on YouTube or send us a voice message. What do you think about what we shared? What do you think about our beach theory today? Give us your feedback.
Yeah.
Do you think we're right? Do you think we're wrong? Answer the question, because I want to hear you guys' opinions too.
And I know we're all in different stages in our life and in our finances. So I know just talking finances alone is a controversial enough subject. But just know, I still want to be your friend. We're still friends. If we talked about something and it offended you, you know, you could write it down in the comment, or we could, you know, you could just let it go and know that we have our own theories.
And it wasn't our intention to offend anyone.
That's not the intention.
This
at
is
all.
just how we feel.
That's the truth.
And we love you guys.
Yep.
Thank you so much for watching Beach Theory. It really means a lot to us that you're here, and we do want to hear from you. And ask us more questions if there's
These
something
are good topics.
else you want us
These
to talk
are
about.
fun. I really enjoy talking about hard things like this.
You got more fun coming your way here on Beach Theory every single week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.